Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads, and especially all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman and Big Earl with the Weedman 420 Chronicles, the Grow Hour. Big Earl, my man, how the hell are you?
I'm doing very well, dude. How are you? It's good to see you again.
Oh, man. We had lunch yesterday with the wives. You came by, dropped off some great herb, and we had lunch with the wives and had some good times yesterday. It was so good to see you. I love when you stroll into town and bring me all those special goodies you always do.
I love coming in too. The boys enjoyed it also. Using the
Yeah, they got to play. Yeah, they got to play with Yuki in the backyard, run around a little bit, get a little pee break and poop break. It was great. Great seeing you, brothers, also, as always. We have a special guest. Rachel, say hello from Deep Roots, Deep Roots Cultures.
Hello.
Good to see you. So we're going to smoke. And Rachel pre-gamed before she got on. So Big Earl and I are going to do a quick little smoky smoke sesh. And Earl, all 4 strains that you bought to me, we smoked 3 out of the 4 yesterday, and we were very, 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 very baked yesterday, Mrs. Weedman and I. So you left me that J yesterday, and I'm super stoked that I'm going to be smoking that Stanky Haze again. Very delicious. Do you want to tell some people about that Stanky Haze real quick?
Yeah, Stanky Haze. Stanky Haze is one of my favorite. It always changes for me, I feel like. Stanky Haze is a Stankosaurus chilled wine haze cross. The chilled wine haze, I tried really hard to keep a lot of the Ice Queen haze. I know we're going back, but very, very hazy, sweet, very high bricks, which is just like sappy kind of, And that Stankosaurus really gives it the hit me again. I can put some stank on it. So I love that one.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The high is everything I look for. Totally body high. Mind is clear. We'll find out the rest of the show, though, how much I smoke and how clear I truly am. But this is really, dude, sticky, dicky, icky. Like, put it up against the wall and it thing ain't falling for weeks. Oh, well done. Wow. So good, my friend. So good. What are you smoking on, my brother?
I roll up spearmints. It's a plant that was short-lived in the garden, but has this kind of like. You've ever walked into a party store that serves like Jack's type pizzas, and you get kind of that like dirty kitchen pizza burnt smell? It has that flavor on it. It doesn't sound appetizing, but it's just different, so I appreciate it. It gives me a nice time.
And Rachel, if you don't mind me asking, what do you like to smoke?
Out of what Earl grows, I really have liked his Florida peaches.
Oh, so good. So good. I've been smoking that too.
I like that one also.
Very nice, Earl. Very nice. Well done. On all 4 strains. I'm telling you, they were banging. I had not tried the brandy pie before, and that was a new one for me. Really, dude, that made me like melt. Yeah. That high lasted, though. It wasn't like a quick 1 hour high. That high lasted a good 3-4 hours, man. It was, I mean, don't get me wrong, we smoked a whole joint together, but it was smooth, man. The high was so good. I took Yuki for a walk, and the birds, and it was just, everything was crisp and bright. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
My kind of.
When people ask for indica, I'm like, okay, you want a downer. I'm done fighting the fight of sativa versus indica. You want a downer? I suggest the brandy pie.
Oh, dude, so good. It was just, but you walk outside and everything. And I've done a lot of psychedelics, so it felt like I was on mushrooms and LSD for a second, where everything gets all crisp and the birds are chirping, but it's like crisp, and you're just looking up and you're just like, whoa. That was what it was like. But this ain't about you and I today. So this is about our friend here from Deep Root Cultures, Rachel. So Rachel, tell us who the fuck you are. Tell us. Give it to us.
I'm a former caregiver. Before that, I was, I guess, an illegal grower.
Traditional market, as we like to call it. Traditional market.
Market. Legacy, right? And yeah, so I spent a lot of time in research and scientific research, and I recently left to start my own company helping growers determine what kind of pathogens they have going on in their plants and to help people clean up their plants.
Nice. And when did you start gardening? When did you start really getting into it?
first plant I ever grew, or like caregiver, kind of like actually you can have plants and it's
Let's talk about the first plant you ever grew. That sounds more intriguing to me.
Oh man, it's like 2005 maybe.
Wow, really? Hell yeah.
It was like
Hell
my
yeah.
first like apartment that was all my own, and I knew like none of my roommates would get me in trouble. And yeah, I got one of those big like orange, metal halide.
Yeah.
High pressure sodium. I don't even remember which one. It was the bright orange one. It was in my closet. Yeah, it was fun.
So did you get some did you get some weed out of it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was bag seed, it wasn't anything like spectacular, but it was still really good, and it was better than, like the Beasters or whatever that didn't smell or taste like anything.
It was fresh. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
So when did you start truly gardening though, when you became a caregiver?
I started caregiving almost as soon as Michigan allowed it. I want to say 2008, 2009, I started my caregiver grow. I had a really close friend of mine who was battling cancer, and she asked me if I would grow for her. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. At that time, there weren't a lot of people doing the caregiver grows, and it was still kind of like, I don't know, you're still like a little bit scared to be targeted, but I definitely jumped in then and started going with it.
Nice. What was some of the strains that you got to grow? That was like, what was some of the genetics that did you breed too, or you just strictly grew?
I didn't breed. I had a lot of friends that were also caregivers, so I could always get genetics from them, like Mango Puff. There were a couple different OGs that were going around. Super Lemon Haze was like my favorite caregiver run ever that I did.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm keeping all of this. I don't want any money this time.
The Super Lemon Haze, Dave hunted.
I'm not sure who hunted it, but
Dave had a really nice one.
So Super Lemon Haze. What were some of the other strains that you like to grow?
I grew like Mango Puff.
Valley Pearl was around at that Mango Puff time.
Valley Pearl, yeah.
Nice.
Black Panther, I think, was a strain that we grew.
I've never heard that strain before. Wow.
Goodnight Irene was around at that time a lot, or the
Black Pearl, was that one that we grew? Yeah, I had a friend that had a caregiver grow, and I would pretty much just like whatever he recommended and whatever he had, that I could get from him, because it was way easier than. At some point, like we kind of kept moms. I had a partner that I took on, and we started keeping moms, but it was easier to just kind of get stuff from him and grow 12 or 24 plants.
Nice. There you go. So you got some experience growing. How long did you caregive for again? I'm sorry if I missed that.
I stopped caregiving a year before COVID, but then I took care of someone else's grow for like a year up until COVID. And when COVID came, I really stopped all of it. There was like I had way too much other stuff to do.
Yeah, growing. I mean, I grow 1 or 2 plants, and just to grow 1 or 2 plants, I know how much time it takes. Imagine growing 24 plants, or like Big
72.
Yeah. So I mean, yes. So it's a full-time thing. I mean, lucky. Yeah. I mean, I'm growing 1 or 2 plants, so I mean, it's like you could fuck up for a day or two. But
yeah.
Going longer than that, you're really screwing up. But when you have a caregiver grow, it takes time, patience, and a lot of go.
Yeah, and you can't, those little tiny slip ups, like they equate to larger amounts of product at the end. So you really want to stay on point so you can make it that you're not losing money.
Do you miss it?
Like yes and no. I mean, I miss seeing the plants every day, but I don't miss like the stress of, oh my gosh, an air conditioner went down, or oh my gosh, like something flooded, or oh my gosh, there's no power at the place. Like all the things that go wrong are so stressful.
Yep. I feel you. I mean, I hear it from. I mean, I talk to Big Earl here every day, and there's days where you just be like, oh man, I was put 10 hours in. I'm like, people don't realize how long it takes just to be even a caregiver. 10 hour, 12 hours, 15-hour days. Everything you got to do in a day to take care of your babies and people's medicine that you're taking care of too. Because that's another thing. You're not just growing for yourself.
Yeah.
You're growing for people's medicine that they're putting their trust in you to do this. So, I mean, I know it can be, besides time and energy and a lot of passion has to go into being a caregiver, being a grower in general, but being a caregiver especially. You have to have that passion, and I mean, I love Big Earl because he's a pollen chucker too, so he gets the best of both worlds. So I get a lot of great beans from him. So his genetics, I still say to this day, it's probably one of my best grows ever. So is from his the biggest fattest buds I've ever gotten was from his grow. So
nice.
Kudos, Big Earl.
Which ones were those? The Lemon Louis.
Those, well, you called the Louis Tray or the Lemon Louis. I've always called it the Weedman 420 experimental strain because you didn't have a name for it at the time. So when you gave me those seeds, I still have 6 left still. And if there's some males in there, I'm definitely going to pollinate a female and get some more seeds. That might be my first breeding because, dude, that Weedman 420 Chronicles experimental, I think I got like a half ounce left of that I just wanted to, and that was my second or third grow. And I saved a little bit of it just because it was so special. There's like one big fat nug in there. So what do you do at Deep Roots, the company that you started, and what are the services offered?
So, we mostly focus on plant health. So we do a lot of screening for various pathogens for our clients. And we also do pathogen remediation. So we clean up plants, preservation, we store plants so that, when you can either remom from clean plants or you have your plants backed up should anything happen to your own plants, which has actually happened to one of our clients. They ended up with like hop latent viroid in their whole facility, but the plants they gave us before they got hit were all clean and we had all their plants. And so we could give them their original plants back. And we also teach people. We go on site and teach at facilities. We set up facilities. We set up labs in facilities. I actually feel like I've done more retraining than like where labs or facility had somebody come in that like didn't know what they were doing, and so nothing worked. And so like I'm going into a situation where everything's there. They have the hood, they have their autoclave, they have whatever, and we're just trying to like make it, get everybody trained on the protocols to get working. So,
and that's at a cultivator.
Yeah, like if you're a facility, a lot of facilities, larger facilities, have like an in-house.
I'm drawing off the subject for a second. How bad is well, I shouldn't say bad. How is the training? Because people are coming in and out of the industry so fast right now. How's the training going with that? Because there's got to be a lot of unexperienced people working in cultivation right now that just got hired, that wanted to get into cannabis, and a lot of inexperienced people out there that are and hopping along places because they're looking for better pay, so they never really truly get trained fast enough. Are you seeing that in facilities?
So I've been really lucky. I haven't seen that. I mean, I definitely see, like turnover in facilities, but I've been really lucky. A lot of the facilities that I've worked with, they've had really good relationships between the management and the employees. I found that even if the turnover is high, like the people that want to learn it are still there. And the people are quality people that I'm training, even if they have ended up like parting with a facility. Most of the people that come to my class to learn, they're really interested in learning tissue culture, whether it's for their facility or just to have that skill. A lot of people think, well, like, yeah, maybe I'll do this in this facility now, but down the road, I might have something where this works out for me. So they're really motivated. And I think the best students are people who are really motivated to learn for themselves and really want to pick up that knowledge. So I've been really fortunate. The students that I've had have like all been amazing. I don't have like a single complaint about any of them. They've all been really motivated to learn, really driven, really goal oriented, getting it right, following the protocols. So yeah, I've been lucky.
That's awesome. Good to hear. So what are the other services and classes you offer then, since you mentioned that?
Yeah, so for like the pathogen screening, I mean, the big one that we do is hop latent viroid screening. That by far and large is the biggest thing that I see in grows. We also screen for other, viruses and viroids, tobacco mosaic virus and beet curly top virus. We don't see as many of those out here in the literature, but I haven't seen any of those tests pop positive personally. So we do a little bit of fungal screening here and there, and yeah, the classes for people training on site, the storage protocols, those types of things.
Sweet. What did you go to school for?
I went to school for biology.
Okay.
So I wanted to be an environmentalist when I was younger, and I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. And then I ended up taking some science classes in college, and I really fell in love with botany. I like just kind of wanted to keep some plants alive and like learn more about plants, and I just
Sweet.
really loved it. And so I took like every botany class that my university offered, and I went to one of my professors and was like, I'm really into this. Like, what do I do? And he pointed me into the direction of a professor there who was doing research. And so I got to work in a lab, and I got to genetically engineer tobacco and do plant research.
Damn.
And it was really like the coolest experience, you know. And so I decided from there I wanted to go to a PhD. So I did the whole, you know, route to do a PhD. And then as I was like graduating and seeing kind of like what that looked like, I thought maybe that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I kind of like took a year off and worked at U of M, just doing research in a lab there, just to kind of like figure out what I really wanted to do, because a PhD is a really big commitment. Yeah, so it's like a lot afterwards.
How was that thesis you had to write?
I mean, I think it's more than the thesis. I think it's, you know, just the whole planning what you want to do. And I just seen a lot of people do that. And I'd worked in a pharmacy for a long time. I'd seen what that looked like. You know, I'd seen a lot of different aspects of the medical research community, and I'd seen different aspects of the plant research community. I, you know, went to some symposiums and presented my research, and it seemed there's amazing things that come out of academic research, but there's also a lot of things that I don't think would have worked out well for me. Like I probably would have lived somewhere that I didn't want to, or work on projects that I had no interest in. And like, while some people are totally fine, like kind of, I don't think that would have worked out for me very well. So I kind of rethought. I worked at U of M for, like I said, a long time, and, you know, did things on the side, was a caregiver on the side, you know, did all these passion projects of grown mushrooms and become a certified, you know, mushroom person in Michigan, forager to sell mushrooms. But
Nice.
yeah, but I mean, it's I've loved science, I've loved nature, all these things, and as soon as I could kind of like actually find a way to use what I know to help growers and be able to, you know, sustain myself doing that, I left U of M and took that road.
Well, I tell you what, because this is your own business, right? You started this
Yeah,
yourself.
by myself. Yeah.
Kudos.
It was not easy.
No, it's not easy. I mean, Mrs. Weedman and I can tell you that it's not easy starting a business. It's not easy even starting a woman-owned business. That's what Mrs. Weedman's going through too. So,
well, in a cannabis business, you know, I mean, even though I'm not growing cannabis or touching cannabis, it's a huge issue.
And what we're going to talk about moving forward is it is a huge issue, and I cannot wait till we get to that part. But I just have to say, I mean, I don't know if somebody ever told you this, but I'm going to say this, and I hardly know you. I'm proud of you. Proud of you for starting your own business. Proud of you for all of your history with botany, going to school, gardener, going for your PhD, and moving forward. I'm proud of you. It's awesome. It's a fucking great to have you on the show. So,
thank you.
How can this help the average newbie grower like myself, or just straight up just someone just gardening? How could this help?
I mean, like, it's good if you ever want to take in a cut from somebody or something. It's always a good idea to get it tested. You know, make sure that you're not getting hop latent viroid in your garden, because you don't want it to maybe cross over into some of your strains that you've been holding on to that you love. You know, you don't want to lose something that you love. So don't let it in your garden. Another thing for people who are like home people, you know, it's not hard to do tissue culture on small scale. You know, so if you wanted to put some plants back and do it on a small scale, it's definitely not out of your reach. You know, Earl came to one of our classes. He learned, like, there's a whole host of ways that you can make it scalable and realistic to do for any size grow.
Yeah. Sweet.
It was an awesome class.
Yeah, I saw the picture you were posting. I was like, man, look at that. Oh man, that's science.
It is, but like she said, it's like, and especially how she teaches it, it's like all hands on, and you leave. Like, I'm pretty confident. I might need some help, like with mixtures and this and there, which she pretty much gave us all the information in the class. But pretty confident in, like, it's almost like the basic, like if you grew mushrooms at home, like it's very like sterile as everything, and if you can just remember your steps, like you're going to be successful a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But it was a very cool class. I appreciate it. I know I've said it 100 times, but I appreciate it. It was a very cool class.
Nice. I love it. Love it. I mean, do you do any video training, like where people can watch through a video if they can't attend? It's like, say if they're somewhere like 1,000 miles away, but they want to
Yeah,
know
I've
more.
had a lot of people ask me about that, and I've hesitated to have that be kind of like the only way, because a lot of what I found is helpful is watching somebody when they're actually working one on one and being able to say, like, hey, where you moved your hand, you just contaminated your sterile field. Or, here you need to put your scalpel over there to be able to get into this meristem a little bit better, to get this bud cracked
There's a
open
lot of
little
that.
bit better. So, I mean, I definitely, I have actually a video crew who is going to help do some videos, but they're kind of more intended to be as like a refresher for people that have already taken the class.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I definitely would give them to somebody who hadn't taken the class, obviously for the fee, but I still feel like having that one-on-one training and having somebody there to correct you as you learn, because you're not going to know what you're doing wrong. Like you might not be successful and you don't understand why, unless someone's there to say, hey, these things that you're not like paying attention to because you've never done this before, like these are the things that you need to be mindful of.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, I'm way better when someone trains me hands on, and I have to do something 10 times to get it to stick. That's just the way my brain works. So
I think a lot of cannabis growers are hands-on people, people that like to learn with their hands. And so I think even a video or an instruction book, while those are helpful and useful references, I still think that hands-on experience is unparalleled.
sweet. Sweet. Well, now we're going to go into some meat and potatoes, which I'm super stoked about. Big Earl, baby, you got some questions to ask. We got some learning to do. So let's go out. I get to sit back now and get baked more than I already have. Thanks, Rachel. It was a pleasure talking to you. See you later.
The class was super dope. I definitely posted a lot of pictures and different videos and stuff. So you went over in the class tissue cultures. You went over nodal tissue cultures, and if I mispronounce or say something, please correct me. The meristem tissue cultures and the synthetic seeds, first, like, which is really similar to a lot of the tissue cultures. I felt like, just in like a little like the formula seemed very similar, and like
and you still need to do everything in sterile conditions to keep it. Everything was
absolutely.
very.
So when we talk about a nodal culture, what exactly is that? Like, I know a lot of people hopefully put together like nodal and node, but like what would you like explain that as, or could you go through that process a little bit of like, compared to a meristem? Because there's, we talked a little bit about just people pretty much giving nodal cultures and calling them meristem and stuff. So maybe we can clear it up for some people.
Yeah.
How about clearing it up for me, Big Earl? Because now I'm fucking don't know which way I'm going.
I'm sorry. What was I talking about?
I'm just baked. I'm just fucking around. Sorry.
So node culture is where we are going to grow a whole plant from a bud that's in an axil, and that is a bud that already has basically access to all the xylem and phloem in the plant, and it has a lot of kind of like little tiny leaves packed around it. So a whole plant will eventually grow from that node, which would be basically a branch if you let it grow on your plant long enough. Meristem culture is different because we are just isolating a pile of like 50 cells out of the very, very center of the top bud, so the terminal bud on the plant. And what we're trying to do is get that tissue before any vasculature or any xylem or phloem gets to it. So because the xylem and phloem are going to be the main ways that any viruses and viroids can be transmitted through the whole plant. And so if we can get that pile of like stem-like cells before they are penetrated by any viruses or viroids, we have a chance of getting the genetic of that plant back without any of the contamination that it's experienced in its lifetime.
Yeah. And we'll talk about it in a little bit too, but that is the only way when you successfully go down to the meristem size to get rid of certain things like hop latent viroid. Is that right? Am I remembering that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I
So
mean, there's arguably you could get a clean cut off of a plant that maybe had hop latent viroid if it wasn't through the whole plant yet. But yeah, I mean, short of these things, like there's, you could get a fast growing tip. But yeah, I mean, the viroid is going to be in the whole plant. If it's a plant that has the viroid in the whole thing, it's going to be in the whole thing. If you're getting these other pieces of the plant, they're potentially going to be contaminated.
yeah, the I was so surprised. The meristem tissue culture was very super fun and enlightening and cool, and like made a lot of stuff click for me a little bit, if that makes sense. Like, cause like it was all to me like a progression. Like there's a clone, then there's like the node tissue culture, then there's the meristem, which is like the true center of the apple, um, and some of those super cool. Was also a synthetic seed. That's a node culture, right? And just in a little bit of a different formula.
Yeah, we kind of take a little bit more of the outer leaves off, but yeah, we just encapsulate it in an algae substitute solution, and so it becomes kind of preserved in there. But it's like the same type of like agarose.
How do you let me ask, how do you store that then? Do you store it in this like a regular room, or do you store it like does that to be because is if what I'm trying to picture in my head I've seen so it's like that jelly that's at the bottom, right? Like I don't know what
Right.
it's called, right? And then you got the little plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
The little clone, the little planty growing, right? The little baby, and it's
Yeah.
encapsulated in this funnel looking thing that's closed. But how do you store that? Like, where does it go after? Like I know where like when a sperm guy donates his sperm, it goes into a flash frozen room and it stays there for 30, 40, 50, 100 years. How do you store these plants?
So it's interesting that you brought up like the cryogenic freezing. So one of the
That's what
reasons
it's
we
called,
don't do
cryogenic freezing.
yeah,
I just thought you just put it in your freezer.
there's places that'll do that. It's colder than your freezer, so they're putting it in liquid nitrogen. It's much colder than your freezer. But with that, sometimes the phenotypes aren't quite the same when they come out. I don't know if there's been work to advance that a little bit, but there was some studies and they were showing that like the phenotypes of the plants weren't quite the same when they would come out of cryogenic freezing. So I think that wasn't quite as popular of a solution. And it's been a couple of years since I've looked at that. So maybe, some companies worked on the technology and they have a better way of cryopreservation. But so yeah, the synthetic seeds are where you take just a little tiny growing bud and then you encapsulate it in sodium alginate, which is almost the same thing as agar. And it's just a little bead with like a plant suspended inside of it. And so then you have these little beads with your little plants inside of them, and you can put them in a test tube and put them in your cold storage.
So like what? So like a fridge, or
Yeah.
what do you mean by cold store? Like
Yep.
just a regular refrigerator you can keep it
Yep.
in?
I mean, I use a pharmacy like refrigerator that has a light on the inside and has a really consistent temperature range, and I can set it so it's like at 6 degrees Celsius instead of 4 degrees Celsius. But yeah, same thing.
When you germinate those, do you germinate those similar to like a regular tissue culture, like where you bring it out?
Yeah, you can put them in agarose and germinate them. I've seen a couple people germinate them on soil and say that they can germinate them on soil. I've never done that. I would imagine there would be certain steps you would take to ensure no contamination were to happen. But yeah,
That's cool. There was a time limit? How long do those store for, even in cold storage?
Mine tend to get brown pretty quickly, which is why I don't use them for genetic storage or genetic archival. They tend to start looking dead and brown not too far after. So yeah, I mean, like 3 months would be as long as I would personally want to keep them, just because I wouldn't want to lose something like that, if I didn't have a backup in regular culture.
Well, how long is that compared to a regular tissue culture? How long can you keep a regular tissue culture in there?
Well, regular tissue cultures, you're just going to need to keep subculturing every, about 3 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, give or take how fast they're growing. And then, there's different ways to kind of put those back too. But yeah.
Very cool.
So my question is, the cultures,
Mm-hmm.
you have them in the thing, you put them in the fridge. What do you do with them after? Like, what do you, can you plant them? What do you do with them?
That's what we're talking about. You could either like
I'm
plant.
stoned. I'm really hazy right now. So
That's
you just
okay.
got
You're okay.
talk
It's
to
a
me.
good question.
Talk to me like I'm baked, like you've never seen someone baked before.
So when you take that little bead and it has your little, plantlet suspended in there, you could take that and put, because it's sterile still, you could take that and put it in one of your sterile, jelly tubs that you're
Okay.
talking about.
Yep.
And keep it all nice and sterile. Or you could put that on soil and germinate it that way.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's really cool and it looks really cool. I don't have tremendous luck with these. Again, which is why I don't really use them as my favorite method of genetic storage. But they're super fun to make and they're really cool to look at. And, maybe if there were better protocols, like more consistent protocols, like right now, I want to say even in the literature, like the best results they get are like 60%, 50 to 60% after like 9 months, which to me is like really low. Like it's not, I want something that I know is gonna be fine. So I have other ways of keeping genetics around longer.
What are some things that like so can you get rid of like powdery mildew with a regular node culture if you do it a few times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Most surface pathogens and fungal pathogens you can get rid of with tissue culture. Some of them that reside a little bit more, you want to make sure there's certain precautions that when we do our tissue cultures, additives that we do in the media. So there's ways that you can kind of screen to make sure that there aren't any endophytes that you're missing, endophytic contamination. There's a lot of times bacteria and different fungal organisms that can live within the plant that a lot of times are beneficial to the plant, but they can become problematic when we do tissue culture. So there's a whole consideration for, different contamination that we get, whether it comes from, outside or inside the plant for those types of things.
Yeah. So one of the things that you do, I know, is the viroid testing, and you brought up the hop latent. Is there anything else you're seeing a lot of? Is that something you're seeing a lot of, the hop latent?
Honestly, yeah, I see tons of hop latent viroid. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's hit or miss, right? Some gardens will have nothing, some gardens will have a lot. When I started doing the testing, a year and a half ago, I was, not a lot of people in Michigan knew about it. Not a lot of people in the grow stores knew about it. It was, in California, they knew a lot more about it than we did. And, I was really surprised, but, people kept kind of like learning about it and growing. I'm surprised now that I have people with larger gardens that will even say, hey, I just heard about this viroid. I think I might have it in my garden based on what, my friend told me. And, and it's just funny to me that like people that like everyone doesn't have a protocol where they've at least tested everything in their garden. They have the protocols for, not transferring that viroid.
Yeah. I think a lot of maybe not a lot, but more of the industry than most industries have ways and methods. And they kind of follow that way and method more than really understanding. And because if you're trying to really understand the plant, you're constantly doing research on it. Because there's so much new stuff. Like we can just now start doing research on it in general, and so it's like there's constantly new stuff coming out all the time, like constantly. So, is there anything else you're seeing like that might be alarming?
Actually, what I've seen that is alarming is I have one person who I work with a lot that also does a lot of tissue culture work, and he keeps telling me that they're seeing a lot of like beet curly top and alfalfa mosaic virus, and like these things are not common in cannabis. And so like my question, I guess, is more like, like now there's a lot more people testing, like are the testing facilities great for all this stuff, and are they actually true positives? Like are these in the plants, and even for beet curly top, I mean that was really big in Colorado because there's a lot of beet fields there. So I think as we see more people grow cannabis, it's a twofold thing. One, you have to make sure that the lab that you're testing with they're a good lab, right? That everything's happening well in their lab, right? And the other thing is, I think we're going to see a lot more of is as we have more cannabis being grown and inside and outside, and now we have all of these insects that are, transmitting all these viruses and viroids. I think we're just going to start seeing a bigger spread of pathogens and a faster spread because we're trading clones everywhere. We have all these established farms and gardens everywhere. You know, these pathogens don't have to travel very far to find a suitable host.
Yeah. Do you think that we're seeing this pop up maybe more also because genetically we're putting, because that's where my mind first goes is, well, we're creating these seeds that are indoors mostly. They don't have to worry about a lot of these pathogens and a lot of the stuff outside. Where if we were creating these seeds outside, these things would get to them, it would destroy them, and it might not get to the ones next to it because they're genetically superior because of that. Do you think that we could be breeding this in, or do you think it's more of us just being more aware and it's just everywhere now, and it's, we're sharing a lot more? And
I think it's that second thing. We're more aware. Everyone's sharing everything. You know, I don't think we're breeding it in because, I mean, every other agricultural industry has been dealing with its own, you know, set of pathogens for those things. You know,
yeah,
hops, grapes. You know, all these things. There's different pathogens that infect each one of these, and every industry is constantly battling those pathogens. You know, I think we just are to the point where it isn't just a couple of closet growers, and you know, you're not afraid to take a picture anymore and share it with a friend, or you know, it's a different world now. Like we can openly talk about these things. There's discords, there's forums, there's, you know, Instagram, and we connect with people and we can share this information. And so, you know, like I see other things like that I don't know what they are. You know, people send me a picture like what's going on with my plants, and you know, they're already an established grower. You know, you can go through the list of things and it's none of those, and you're like, okay, well, outside of that, you know, like it could be fungal, there could be some other disease, but I mean, short of like doing the legwork to find out if there's a unique and novel disease, you know, sometimes it's hard to say. And I think that's where the scarier part is that I feel like I've seen a lot more people sending me pictures or sending somebody I know pictures saying like, do you know what this is? And it's like, I have no clue what that is.
yeah.
You know?
So do me a favor. Explain the explosion of this main viroid that's going around right now. Like, I mean, like I was talking with Big Earl today, yesterday too, and during our lunch together about this.
We've been talking about it a lot.
yeah, and we were super excited. Tell us about this. What's the acronym for it? The
HLVD, yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And
Yeah.
did it come from hops too? That was another thing I was wondering because I was in the beer industry for a long time too. So, and I know cannabis and hops are cousins.
Yes.
But go ahead and tell us about this. This is like big, and I know we wanted to get some other questions about like what other viroids you're seeing, but this one here, like explain to the growers what's going on right now and what we're seeing.
Yeah. So, you know, it started with one nursery in California that really started seeing a lot of this, and they would call it dudding. They called it like a dudding disease. They just noticed their plants would be, you know, growing, everything's fine, and then somewhere in flowering, they just dudded out. They just kind of stopped developing. Whether it was they stopped growing taller, they stopped developing trichomes or glands, they just stopped really progressing through their typical development. And this nursery, I mean, it was happening enough with them where they had to really work to figure out what was going on. And so they had to, you know, do some RNA sequencing to figure out what kind of viroid they had going on. And the thing about hop latent viroid is it's a really small viroid. It's only like 250 base pairs, which is really, really, really small. And it has no protein coat. It's just a tiny little piece of RNA that folds up on itself. So it's hard to kill it because only bleach is going to kill it. And up until that point, you know, people had only used isopropyl or ethanol to kill fungal organisms or bacterial organisms. But the problem with that is it actually like really preserves nucleic acids really well. And so you basically make this slushy of hop latent viroid, and then your scissors are in there and it's getting all over your entire garden. So this, they had to do some sequencing, figure out what was going on. And, you know, they got together with a couple different people to try to get some testing done. And TUMI is one of the bigger groups out there that does testing. They started doing some of this work. I know that they started kind of doing COVID testing first, but they have enough funding, and they had a friend who kind of consulted them and started asking them about that. So, yeah, so once they kind of realized that this was the viroid that was causing this dudding disease, then they started realizing like how far reaching it truly was. And in California, I mean, there were like tons of people affected. I mean, even here, by the time, and I think even, we've gotten to the point where growers have their grows so well dialed in. Their humidity is on point, their temperature is on point, their par, every aspect is dialed in. So you're not going to see a pathogen being as aggressive as when the plant is unhealthy. So, you get growers with great gardens and they're like, I don't know what's going on. I have this row of plants, this whole genetic it's like half the size it should be. I don't know what's going on. And you test and you find out, half their garden has hop latent viroid, but it's not super obvious because they do have really good systems.
Yeah. Yeah, it scared me so badly because I heard of different viroids and different this and that, but hop latent was the first one that I had heard travels through seed also.
Yeah.
And I like collecting, and so like it was maybe 3-ish years ago when I first heard of it, and I had first heard that it traveled through seed and looked into it a little bit, maybe a little bit more recently than that. But I almost stopped collecting almost cold turkey because it was like I test everything constantly. So if my garden's half fucked up, it's usually because I fucked something up. So like it would take me like a minute to be like, oh, okay, there's something else going on here, I think. But yeah, that's terrifying. So are you I don't know if you could even lock down a percent, because I've seen articles and they say, oh, this percent of this garden. What do you think? Like, do you think most big, large gardens who are like active in the community have this?
No.
Nice. That's nice.
I think at this point, most big, large gardens, I mean, if you're a commercial facility, most people already have heard about this, like,
yeah,
by far and large. And I think the only way that you haven't heard about it is because you had your own genetics for a long time and you weren't, outsourcing anything. You didn't have to worry about it. And then you took something in and all of a sudden something's happening and you're talking to your friends, like, what is going on? What could and somebody says, have you checked for hop latent viroid?
Yeah. Is that something that, so in seeds they have like bacteria and stuff that store with the seed to help germinate. Is that something that time could possibly kill? A viroid in a seed like that, do you think? Do you know? Maybe that's
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I could answer that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was off.
No.
So basically it's like the plant catching the flu
that it can't get rid of.
That it can't get rid of. Cuz the way, or a cold, or like what did you compare this to? Because it spreads by touch.
You can definitely spread it through your plants pretty easily, unfortunately.
It's most detective in the roots, right? That's where you can like see the actual viroid active the most. Or is my
the roots definitely have been shown to, if the plant, which would be the most indicative of the disease state of the plant. So if your plant is diseased, if you test the roots, they will give you a positive result more often than a leaf sample would.
And what should people look for when they're seeing this viroid in their garden? Like, what are the signs?
The first things you want to look for are if your plant isn't growing the way it used to grow. If it's not growing to the same height or the same stature, we see a lot of it's like 90-degree lateral branching. So normally, when we talked about that axillary bud that wants to grow up out of the node, right? We got your leaf, you've got your stem, you've got your axillary bud, and it wants to grow up and be another branch, right? When it grows up, normally it wants to kind of grow straight up or like at a 30-degree angle with that main stem. It's growing up. When we have hop latent viroid plants, that stem wants to grow out more at like a 90-degree angle. It's like weird lateral branching patterns. The leaves will be smaller. When the plants are older and they're infected, one of the most notable signs, in fact, I've only ever had this not be true once, was if you touch a branch lightly and it snaps off, that's usually a really good indicator that you've got the viroid present. Like I said, only one time I went to a garden and pressed on a branch and it snapped and they didn't have hop latent viroid anywhere. And I was actually kind of surprised because date of everything. Like, but it just depends. But that is a really good indicator if a branch breaks, but not always.
Not always.
That's so scary because like I like to hunt through seeds, and so sometimes plants just kind of grow a little bit more, vertical or horizontal, and sometimes
Yeah.
plants are just a little bit more brittle, and so you catch that on one plant or two plants, you're like, oh my god. But it's in my case always brand new seeds and stuff, but it still is always just so heart dropping for a second until I look at a tag. I'm like, it's okay. I just don't know this plant.
And I think too, there's other vectors. We say that we know what the vectors are, scissors, manual transmission. But I mean, I think there's also a lot of other vectors that we just don't have nailed down. Again, because the research isn't there. We don't have the funding and the labs that are able to go and do this kind of research. But we do see that different fungal organisms will harbor other viroids and pass them from plant to plant. We do see that things like root aphids and other thrips, piercing insects can carry different viruses and viroids from plant to plant. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see that, it's not just did you take in a dirty plant from your friend, but this is just going to be something that all growers kind of have to just, like Earl said, be on top of. You're kind of always looking at your plants to make sure the growth is healthy, because you're never going to be, like you said, you're popping seeds. You're never going to be guaranteed 100% everything's okay. Yeah. And I think just having good protocols, keeping your plants separate, using clean scissors, all the things that are going to keep you from transmitting it if it's in your garden.
Yeah. Are those is there a percent bleach that is going to work better for this?
I like to use 15 to 20% bleach for my scissors.
Okay. And then just like in between, you trim up one plant, you throw your scissors into some bleach, maybe grab some other ones out, maybe clean them off, trim up your other plant. Is there a protocol that people should be doing further than that, do you think? Like, is that what these big places are doing?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things that I see that work well for people. And one is to have 2 pairs of scissors and 1 cup of bleach, where you're trimming up one plant and the one scissors are sitting, and then you just swap out for the next plant. Yeah. If you're trimming like your finished product, it's not necessarily such a big deal. Yeah. It's a big deal when your plants are still alive. So when you're defoliating, training, all those types of things. The other thing that I see people do who, and it really depends on like what your level of exposure is, right? Like some facilities have hop latent viroid and they're trying to work through it, to get through what they have, to start clean again, those types of things. And for those facilities, I don't know that I would suggest a bleach and scissors. I kind of tell them, well, if you can swing razor blades, just get a new razor blade for every plant and throw it away when you're done. Get new gloves, new razor, just everything, because if you do have an active issue that you're trying to work through and remediate, you don't want to keep passing it to your younger new plants.
Yeah. And gloves can be super, like you pop off one leaf. I don't think I even notice when I do it in the garden. I just look down and I have a handful of leaves. So like gloves for sure can be that one little leaf pop, and you go to the next plant and one little leaf pop just because like I don't like how that leaf looks, or whatever it is, can definitely. Is there anything else like that we should be doing at all? Like, is there something you see like you say, man, I wish that the everyday gardener would just do this, or this could help so much if we could just do this a little bit?
I mean, like, I just think people are going to have to move away from like arrow cloners and stuff. I mean, again, unless your garden is, you've tested your garden, everything's super clean, you're not taking in any other genetics, quarantining. Like yeah, I mean, I think testing is just, periodic testing. If you're taking new stuff in, at least have a baseline on your garden, get your stuff tested once to make sure that you don't have anything, even if it's like your friend, just like, when people started getting russet mites, it was like, oh my God, they're so small, you can't see them. And you were much more careful to quarantine your plants a little bit differently than you were before you knew russet mites were a thing. You know what I mean? Every word or thing that you learn about, you just quarantine more.
My goodness, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean with the russet mites. They are not very fun. but they're not super hard. I hope at least with the hop latent and any viroid really that the community comes across, we can treat it like the rusets because people have protocol in place, and
Exactly.
it's pretty foolproof. Like it's not it's just something that you don't see coming when you get it, but then you can develop these protocols that you're going to be very unlucky to get russets if you follow the right protocol.
Exactly.
You never want to say never, but like, and so hopefully hop latent can be like that. And I know I definitely need to do better. I definitely check new seeds, but once they get through my initial like, you know, go at them, you're good. You can move on, but which is not scientific.
Is there a way to clean the seeds then once you get them? Is there something you can do to prevent it? Like you don't know if it's in there or not, but is there a way to like prevent it when you're none, huh?
No.
So
No, I mean, not at
come
least
on, Rachel, you need to invent something like that. This
Well, I
cleaner,
mean, they have different antivirals.
seed cleaner, like a golf ball cleaner, one of those. Sorry, I look
But if
kind of
it's on the
awful.
inside, if it's on the inside of the tissue, that's where the problem is. So,
Gotcha.
while we can clean like fungal pathogens from the outside of the seed coat, if it's inside, it's inside. Yeah.
Could an embryo rescue get around that?
No.
Damn.
Just trying everything out, you Earl.
I don't know.
So is this a real problem? I mean, is this like is the media blowing this up to be the problem that it is, or is it a problem that is going to get worse? Is it like something that we all need to be worried about, like big time? Could it like ruin the cannabis industry for a while? Because hearing about what's going on in Canada, I've read some shit what's going on in Canada. They're like saying this is a real issue. So
Like currently or like 2 years ago?
No, this is like probably within the last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for me, when I see indoor grows that kind of have everything locked down, they don't have much to worry about. So I'm not sure in Canada what they're like, if they're worried about us losing all genetics at a certain point, because I mean, if like usually when people test positive for hop latent viroid, most of the time they're chucking the plant. It's a lot of work to do the meristem remediation to get those clean little clumps of cells and then grow them up and keep testing them for that viroid. So I don't know if it's just that they're worried about us losing genetics or if potentially they have a lot more outdoor grows there and they're worried about the implications of that. And again, it'll be interesting to see as more money gets put in this industry where we find out what other vectors are that maybe we didn't understand were vectors before.
How does that interaction with you go? So somebody says, okay, we think we have this virus. They send you a leaf sample. You take that and you test it. What was that?
Some roots.
Some roots. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, some root samples. Yes, some clean root samples. Dirt cleaned off. You want the dirt cleaned off, and you want just roots, or do you care?
I care. Okay. Please clean off the dirt from. I do not like getting piles of dirt.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. And then it's like, okay, you have have you ever had somebody want to meristem it out? Or is it just like every single, you just said most people throw it out. Is it every single person just like, I'm not even effing with this?
Yeah. Well, because if you're actually getting meristem, I mean, you're looking at least 6 months until you get a plant out of that, and you're going to have to make sure, you're going to have to really do really adamant screening to make sure that the viroid isn't there, because sometimes the levels can be so low that it's undetectable. And so especially if we're doing something in culture, we may not be testing the part of the tissue that has the virus in it or the viroid in it, or we may not be getting a high enough load for detection.
Yeah. And that's not like a week of testing. You said it takes like a year a lot of times to go from meristem to plant.
Yeah, to a full grown rooted plant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and each one of those plants needs to be checked for hop latent viroid. I can tell you Segra in Canada has like an 80% success rate, and they charge, I want to say I've heard around like $8,000. So if again, there's a lot of people doing things out there, and a lot of people use terminology that is inconsistent. So if you're getting meristem culture, just make sure that the person who's doing it is actually culturing the meristem and not just a bigger portion of tissue.
Yeah, because I mean, like that was crazy. Like it was like when you got down to it, it was not something that like you need practice to be able to get that small. It's not something you just go in and get a microscope and be like, I'm gonna get the meristem out of here. Like you have to like go like it's practice and like not a little practice, like practice. You did it like you were putting butter on a piece of bread, and I'm sitting there like I can't find it. Where's it at? Moving the plate around. I need a new thing. Like it was like I can't. Even, it was like humbling how like just crazy small it was. I don't think I've for sure never tried to work with anything close to that small ever.
But it's you're right. It's just practice. You know, I mean, if you practice it enough times, you'll get better.
Yeah. And so, what do you have anything like fun coming up with Deep Roots? Anything new planned? Or you just kind of focusing on one thing you didn't talk about was I know you do the plant sexing where people
Yeah.
will send in and they you know, and I after going over that with you, if you hunt seeds, it makes sense financially to literally get your plant tested from a small piece of the leaf when it's
Yeah.
young, than to take it through 2 months of veg and 2 weeks of flower. It's just like the math there. It's super cool. But is
Yeah.
there anything else you got planned with Deep Roots?
You know, we just did a huge gender test, like 3,000 plants for someone who does all outside cultivation stuff, and that was kind of cool because it was just like, wow, like what's the actual limit of what, you know, one
Yeah.
of those kind of challenge things.
Were they
But I
were
mean,
they good? Were they
honestly,
happy? What
yeah,
was
they
the
were
ratio?
thrilled. We got everything done on
Yeah.
time. They were
Like,
super happy.
I mean, like, how they get a lot of ladies, or like, were they
Yeah,
like
I mean, it was like a distribution that seemed normal, you know,
okay, 50-50,
50
close
50 kind,
50?
you know.
I recently had a very like just devastating. I won't ever shut up about it. Devastating turnout of ladies to male ratio, and so it's just nice to hear if somebody else had a bad one too. But I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, they do go in runs though, and it is weird. And if they are sometimes weird, I will reach out to people and be like, "So, what are these plants okay? You know, what's going on here?"
Give me some specifics here, please.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that, and I mean, just kind of, you know, new things for tissue culture. I do really love doing the classes. It's cool to meet people from, you know, different places around Michigan and around the country to see what they're doing, what they're interested in, what they're working on, you know.
yeah, it was super fun. Even like I can take, I'll just walk people through the class real quick. Like, so we go in, you have like the sterilization protocol, which was fantastic to see. Um, we got like all the percentages of everything laid out super nice. There was like a slideshow. It was all very nice. There were you gave us like links to stuff and all like everything was backed up. We went through all the node cultures, made our own, which was super cool. Um, that was what am I missing? We did all the mixes. We did all you gave us all the mixtures
We
to
made
do it.
media, yeah.
Yeah, and we like sterilized everything. It was super 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 cool. It was all hands on, and it really like for me. So for me, I don't like I work with big facilities, but never anything like that. But as just with what I love, it gave me like a better understanding, kind of like even of just simply cloning. To be honest with you, I've cloned for a long time, but I haven't. I don't think I maybe not understood it, but I just didn't. It was just nice to have that extra layer. I really liked it. And then the second day, we did meristem. You went over some synthetic seeds with us, which was really cool. We did sex testing, which was super. It was all very cool. And since then, it's like all the questions have been answered. I'll stop saying it, but it's a very fun class, and I appreciate it again. It was super cool. And if anybody's looking for something like that, even if you like you said, the meristem step alone, like I wouldn't even know who to. I don't have anybody I would even trust besides you. I don't think to get that out because it's like you should have seen it, Mr. Weedman. It was like crazy little.
It's
Like
like a grain of pepper. It's
yeah, it
so
was like
small.
Really? That's
you
crazy.
Yeah.
can't like even on like so you like look at it under the microscope. And then like the only really way to tell is because like is the very tip of your razors, So you're like, it was very very cool.
Yeah.
But
You're like, did I lose this?
That
Did I get
I
in
lost it
there?
12 times, and it's like okay, let's find another one. It's like shit, I just spent 20 minutes carving those freaking leaves off.
it's funny because there's a lot of people out there that are just really great at tissue culture and, started before I did or around the time I did, and they've all been really kind of going ahead. And so we kind of make jokes, like if you can, like your meristem showing, like you shouldn't be able to see it, like if you can see it in the gel, like that's not meristem.
That's funny.
So Big Earl, was your stem showing when you did your culture
Well,
testing
bro,
and stuff?
I didn't even ever see my meristem. I literally didn't even get to the last pair of my leaves. I wanted to so badly, and the classmate I was with, he was really good at it, and I was having a lot of fun watching him get close. To be honest with you,
Also, the classmate had traveled from a little bit further, and I knew Earl was a little bit more local and could come back and practice a little bit more if he wanted to. And the other guy was like taking time off work to come and work at it. So I tried to give him as much time as he could.
Yeah. Was he above average, or was I below average on what you see people on their first try on meristem?
I think you guys both did really well for your first try.
Oh, I didn't get very close, I don't think.
No, I think you did. I think you did, and I think you had the technique down well.
It's all about that technique, Earl. It's all about technique.
Getting to it. You have to get to it cleanly. And if you can't get to it the right way, the whole thing's just a pile of mush. And so you're kind of there. And then you're just I don't see it. It could be in this piece. It could be in that piece.
God, if this wasn't a family show, the fun I could have right now with this fucking.
Yeah.
I'd be going. If we were off air, I'd be going crazy right now with the one-liners, and I'll just keep that for another time. So, Rachel, we'll end on. We'll say, do you have anything else you want to talk about? And I thank you, but do you have anything else you want to say about what we've been talking about here? And we're gonna have you back on. We're gonna have you back on real soon too. We're super stoked about that.
There is one thing I want to say, and it's really not about anything that I've seen, but I know the cannabis industry has kind of been on a roller coaster lately, and I know a lot of people have been down and out. That the money's gone down, but I think a lot of people are hanging in there, and I see so many people that love it, like their passion just shining through, and people just growing such great quality flowers. I just want to thank all those people that are doing it for the passion, for the love, that they come out and just really want to learn more and just love it. I think that's really cool that that's kind of where we are. And I hope that it keeps going that way.
Nice.
Yeah. We're going to see a cool evolution there, I think, because this whole market, I think everybody kind of knows where the market is and where it's been going and where it's looking like it might be going.
Yeah, the caregivers and home growers, that's where it should go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, what it's doing right now is it is making it to where it's really, really hard to survive. And so that's the only people that are really sticking with it are the ones that are I don't care how hard it is. You could be arresting me and I'm still doing this shit. That's going back to those same people. But everybody's connected now. There's so much more information out there. We have stuff like vapor pressure deficits, and and then it's so. But yeah, that's awesome.
Well, Rachel, we really appreciate you for hanging out with us. We're looking forward to Burp in the Bag episode. We'll have you back on for that. You got a really good topic you're going to talk about in that one. I'm not going to ruin it, but I'm looking forward to having you back on Burping in the Bag. And we really appreciate you being on board and just teaching us and educating everybody out there in the world. But do me a favor, tell us where people can find you out. Throw some plugs, website.
I always forget this part. So Deep Roots TTC on Instagram, deeprootstTC.com. I have a website that you can get a hold of me there too. Instagram is a great place. Also, there's a phone number on the website. If you mention that, you saw on the 420 Mr. Weedman show with Big Earl, that we'll give
Grow Hour.
Yeah, just mention you saw us here and we'll give you a discount.
Hell yeah, discount for all the Grow Hour listeners. I love it. Thank you for that. I wasn't even expecting
testing
that
and
gift.
classes.
Nice. Listen to that, everybody. So make sure you reach out to Deep Roots Cultures and Deep Roots on Instagram and the website and say hello and questions and go take the class if you got to. I mean, I want to go stay with Big Earl and get baked and go take the class high and have some fun.
You should come see her labs if she would let us see them. I'm not inviting. I don't have but if she would let us see them, her labs are very, very cool.
Yeah, nice. You can come to my labs anytime.
Hell yeah! So if I ever come out and visit Big Earl at his place, we'll come visit just for. I don't know if I want to take the class because I want to come visit though and learn. Just to be goofy and have some fun and look at the little
come
jelly.
hang out anytime. You're always welcome.
Well, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you, Rachel. Big Earl, got anything else to say, brother?
Man, guys, don't forget your CalMag. I appreciate everybody.
Everybody out there, don't forget the CalMag. Peace. Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a ninth decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.